They thought they were answering a routine distress call, but when rescuers boarded the drifting vessel, the engine was still running, meals were still warm, and every single crew member had vanished, mid-task, mid-life, as if pulled straight out of reality. Tonight. Lost at Sea, the most haunted ship ever found abandoned. Viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to hear is taken from documented reports, and some details are deeply unsettling. Imagine a ship with no captain, no crew, and no explanation, yet something still moves inside its hulls. Abandoned ships are terrifying, but the one you're about to discover didn't just lose its crew. It kept their voices. The flashlight trembled in his hand, not from the storm, but from the thing crawling through the dark with him. He said the metal beneath his boots began to drag, as if the ship itself was shifting to breathe. And then he heard it, soft, broken. A voice whispering from inside the walls. "Help me." He ran. But whatever was on that ship ran faster. He never made it back to the deck. His name was Thomas Mellon, an engineer who had spent half his life on the water. Storms didn't scare him. Darkness didn't shake him. Out here, 70 miles off course in the North Atlantic, he was the kind of man captains trusted when things went wrong. But even Thomas felt it the moment he stepped through the fog. A heaviness on the air, like the ocean was holding its breath. For days, the crew had been reporting strange malfunctions, radios glitching, voices cutting in and out, and an engine that roared to life on its own in the dead of night. Thomas had come to fix a failing vessel, but the deeper he walked into that drifting ship, the more he realized. Something else was waiting for him. The deeper Thomas moved into the empty vessel, the quieter the ocean seemed to grow, as if the ship were swallowing every sound around him. Then he heard it, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, pacing across the upper deck. But Thomas was alone. At least, he thought he was. A cabin door slammed somewhere behind him. No wind. No movement. Just a violent crack that echoed through the metal corridors like a warning. He followed the noise, calling out, but the only answer was a faint dripping. Too faint. Too steady. He traced it to a storage room, dry as bone. Not a single leak. Yet the sound continued, drip, drip, right beside his ear. Every hallway he walked seemed to stretch longer than the last, narrowing, breathing, closing in around him. And then he reached the captain's cabin. What he found inside made him realize, he wasn't alone on that ship. Inside the crew quarters, Thomas froze. Every bed was neatly made. Every uniform folded with careful hands. But when he touched the fabric, he felt it, warmth. As if someone had been sitting there only moments before. He moved to the captain's desk, and that's when he noticed the logbook. The final entries were dated after the ship had been declared missing, written in a rushed, trembling hand. Before he could read another line, he heard it. A whisper. Soft at first. Then clearer. Repeating his name. Dragging it through the air like a breath from behind the walls. The radio beside him crackled to life, spitting static, then a voice broke through. A voice he recognized from the missing crew manifest. A voice that shouldn't exist anymore. "Help me, please, don't leave me here." Thomas backed away, shaking, whispering to himself, maybe it's echo, maybe it's the storm. But deep down, he knew the truth. The storm wasn't calling his name. Thomas descended into the engine room, hoping to find a logical explanation, but what he found waiting in the steam and shadows was anything but logical. Between the pipes, something moved. Not one shape. Several. Tall, thin silhouettes sliding across the metal like they didn't need legs to stand. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, fast, frantic, yet somehow quieter than the metallic clanging echoing through the room. And far softer than the whispers that suddenly rose into shrill, human screams. Before he could turn back, the engine room door slammed behind him with a force that shook the floor. Thomas threw himself against it. Nothing. Something was holding it shut. He ran. He didn't care where. He tore through the corridors as the lights flickered and the sound of footsteps, too many footsteps, followed him. Not running. Not walking. Crawling. By the time he reached the upper deck, he could feel it closing in. Breathing behind him. Reaching. And when he finally dared to look up, he saw it. A figure clinging to the ceiling above him, its limbs bending the wrong way, its face inches from his own. It smiled. In a final burst of terror, Thomas reached the radio room and sent out a broken distress call, his voice shaking, drowning in static. Rescuers traced the coordinates and reached the drifting vessel within the hour. But when they boarded, Thomas was gone. No signs of struggle. No blood. No footprints leading away. Just his flashlight lying in the center of the deck, still warm, as if it had been dropped only seconds before. Investigators searched the ship from bow to stern. They found nothing, no crew, no bodies, no proof that anyone had been alive for days. Except the captain's logbook. On the final page, written in Thomas's handwriting, was a single sentence. They don't let you leave. If you're still watching, you're brave enough for what comes next. He said the ship was calling him, and he regretted answering. Her name was Elena Cruz, one of the most respected marine safety divers on the Atlantic coast. Calm under pressure. Trained for catastrophe. She'd pulled bodies from wrecks, survived storms that swallowed lesser crews. Nothing unnerved her. Until now. She was sent to investigate a mystery no one wanted to talk about, the abandoned vessel Thomas Mellon vanished from. Despite being towed away multiple times, it kept drifting back into the shipping lanes as if something on board refused to let it rest. So Elena went underwater, descending into the deep gloom where light dies and the ocean begins to feel alive. The deeper she swam, the colder it became, and the more she felt watched. Elena reached the shadow of the derelict hull, her flashlight cutting through the murk, and that's when she heard it. A heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Not hers. Not human. Thudding through the water like it was coming from inside the ship itself. She tried to steady her breathing, only to freeze. Because suddenly, she felt another breath. Not her own. A warm exhale brushing the inside of her mask, fogging the glass from the inside. Elena spun, expecting a diver behind her. But there was nothing. Just darkness pressing close on all sides. Then she found it. A locket drifting gently in the current, as if someone had just dropped it. A crew member's keepsake, one listed among the missing. She reached out and grabbed it. It was warm. In the freezing Atlantic depths, it was warm. And the moment she touched it, something touched her back. The deeper Elena drifted, the darker the world became. Strange silhouettes began sliding beneath the ship, shapes that moved with purpose, but not life. Long limbs, impossible angles, following her descent. Her dive cam flickered, then steadied, and in the reflection of her own helmet, a face stared back at her. Pale. Hollow-eyed. And absolutely not hers. A sound rolled through the water, a distant wailing, stretched thin by the depth, followed by a low, trembling rumble, like something ancient waking up. Every instinct told her to go back. But she kept sinking, deeper, deeper, pulled by a pressure she couldn't explain, or resist. Then, everything stopped. No sounds. No movement. Just the soft pop of rising bubbles, and a silence so heavy it felt alive. And in that stillness, Elena saw it. A body, floating upright, perfectly still, its eyes wide open, staring straight at her. Then it moved. The body turned. Slowly at first. Then with impossible speed, it lunged toward her, slicing through the water like a predator born of the deep. Elena's panic surged. She kicked, clawed, desperate to ascend, her lungs screaming for air as the shadow behind her surged faster than reason could allow. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, matching the blaring alarms of her failing dive computer. Each pulse echoed through the water, through her chest, through her mind. Flashes of her flashlight cut the darkness, catching glimpses of impossible figures, long limbs, hollow faces, circling, waiting. Finally, she broke the surface, gasping, water streaming down her mask, and froze. On the ship's railing, not one shadow, but several. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Their eyes hollow, unblinking, and somehow, aware of her. And she knew, with bone-deep certainty, that the terror had not ended. Elena never dived again. The ocean, once her sanctuary, had become a predator she could never escape. Weeks later, she mailed the locket to the investigators, hoping to put it behind her. But when they opened it, the photograph inside had changed. The face staring back at them was hers. And she swore the image showed her drowning. This recording was so disturbing, the Coast Guard tried to bury it. Daniel Shore was a radio operator. One of the few trained to decipher signals no one else could understand. His job, track, analyze, and document mysterious audio transmissions from the drifting ship. But the moment he listened, he realized the signals weren't just noises, they were voices. Human voices. Layered. Distorted. Impossible. Screaming, pleading, overlapping with each other in ways that made reality feel thin, fragile. And yet, Daniel couldn't look away. He had to know what they were saying. Even as dread began to coil in his chest, tightening with every syllable. The first sound was subtle, a gurgling, like water moving through pipes that shouldn't exist. Then came wet footsteps, slow, deliberate, pacing across the floor behind him, though Daniel was alone. A voice cut through the static, a woman whispering, soft and urgent. "Don't look at them." Daniel froze. His own name echoed next, drawn out from the radio static, repeated in a cadence that no one else could know. He hadn't told anyone he was in the office alone, and yet, the voices knew. Then, the voices started whispering. From inside his room. The air thickened. The walls seemed to breathe. Every shadow flickered, alive, waiting, watching. The radio crackled one final time. A distress signal, time-stamped from the future, a message that shouldn't exist, screaming from the void. Daniel's eyes widened as water began pooling under the console, spreading across the floor. Though the building was completely dry. No leaks. No pipes. Nothing should have been wet. And then he saw them. Figures, emerging in the reflections of his monitor. Shadows without shape, faces that twisted, staring back at him from impossible angles. The audio exploded into chaos. Voices overlapping, screaming, whispering, pleading. Daniel's own voice seemed to join them, a fragment of him stolen into the noise. Panic clawed at his mind, and then the horrifying truth hit him. The voices weren't trapped on the ship anymore, they were leaving. Escaping. Entering, through him. Daniel managed one final recording before he vanished, his voice trembling, cutting through static. If anyone hears this, don't answer. They climb, through the sound. Hours later, investigators found his office, soaked in seawater. The walls dripping, the floor glistening as if the ocean itself had invaded. And the radio. Still alive, still faintly breathing, as though it held a part of him inside. To this day, the ship continues to drift. No crew. No bodies. No explanation. Just whispers, waiting for someone to listen. And far in the distance, a faint tapping. SOS, repeating endlessly into the void. Thank you for staying with us through tonight's investigation, through the shadows and the whispers that lingered just beyond the edge of the ship. You've walked the decks where no living soul remains, listened to voices that should have died, and felt the presence that never truly leaves. If these stories kept you on edge, remember, the ocean and the dark are not finished with us. And next week, we will dive even deeper. 3 hikers disappeared in the woods, only to return, carrying a voice that was not their own. A voice that shouldn't exist. A voice that refuses to be silenced. Tell us what you think. Share your theories. Your fears. Did you hear the whispers before anyone else? Did something move behind you as you listened? And if you want more haunted, abandoned, and terrifying cases, you already know what to do. The sea keeps its secrets, and so do the shadows. But sometimes, if you listen closely, they'll call to you. Quiet now, a low rumble beneath the waves, the faint wind of a distant storm, and then, silence.